there's that there too. But I think Gurley's the focal point of the Rams offense, and I think that he's going to be the one that's going to end up being the number one back when it's all said and done.
Awesome. Okay. Who do you think should be avoided? Just people that are way overrated, or just don't even draft them at all.
Sure. Well, you're probably going to hate me when I say this because I saw your tweet a couple days ago, but I have Carson Wentz on my list of avoided players.
That's bad. I have him drafted in almost every one of my leagues.
Yeah, I had seen that you had drafted him, and I said, oh, man, but, if he works out for you, that's great, but my reservations against him, there's no, from what I've read, again, this is everything I've read, and I've been, doing my research, I don't know if he's going to be ready week one. There's still that possibility of that hanging over his head from what I've read. Alshon Jeffrey might start the season on the PUP list. That's his number one receiver. Aguilar's a little bit banged up. Don't know what the situation is there. For me, I just think, like I said, I know he's being drafted in fifth, sixth round from what I've read. That's okay for where he's at, but I think there's just too many question marks going into the season to pick him. I think you're better off if you could get like a Matthew Stafford or somebody like, Phillip Rivers or something. I think you're better off with that. Again, like I said before, I'd rather have consistency than have, somebody with question marks over their head. But, if it works out for you, I hope it works out for you at the best anyway, Joe.
Who else you got?
I have LaShawn McCoy on there. That's, that legal issue hanging over his head. You don't know if he's going to be starting the season, suspended or anything like that. The guy's 30 years old. He's ran the ball in his career over 2,000 times. That's a lot of tread on those worn on those tires. You look at the offensive line there in Buffalo. 3 of their starters from last year have either retired or moved to another team. The receiving core isn't that great, so I think the defense is going to really be keying on him. So that's him. I don't think he's worth drafting. I would avoid him. I have Brandon Cooks also for the Rams. Also, I just think the receiving core for the Rams is very crowded, and he's replacing Sammy Watkins from last year. I think he'll do better than Watkins did, but when you figure what Watkins did last year, he had about 70 targets. That's too low for me. I'd rather get a guy, if I can, that's going to get you more than that. And also Brandon Cooks, he's a field stretcher. He runs deep, so he's got a chance for a lot of 50-50 balls. Their schedule's tough too. He faces Patrick Peterson twice, Richard Sherman twice, Casey Hayward, Xavier Rhodes, Chris Harris, Marshawn Lattimore. That's a tough schedule to go against for what I think is probably going to be number 1 or number 2 wide receiver, but he is facing a lot of talent this year. Who else do I have? I'm sorry. Another guy I throw out there was Evan Ingram for the Giants, only because you do have Odell coming back. They do have Barkley this year. I think they're going to focus a lot more on the run, and Sterling Shepard is probably going to play a full season this year. So I think, and he's being taken around the 6th round. So I think if you can find somebody better at that position in those rounds, when you're looking, 6th, 7th, 8th round, I would go for somebody else. I also have Tyreek Hill is another one for the Chiefs. They got that new quarterback now. Mahomes can throw the ball like crazy from what I've seen so far in the preseason, but they are going to have Watkins and KC. They do have Kelsey. They do have Kareem Hunt. There's a lot of people there that you got a lot of mouths to feed. You know what I mean? And like I said, that's another guy I'd like to avoid. And from what I've seen, he's being taken in the 3rd round, and for me, that's just too high. That's too high of a price to pay for him. I think he's been drafted in like wide receiver 11, 12, 13 from what I've seen, and I wouldn't go that high on him. So.
Okay. How about the Steelers? To me, what do you think? Well, let's start with Ben. How do you think he'll do fantasy-wise? There's this thing. It's funny. The home Ben, road Ben thing where he puts up great numbers at home, but then on the road puts up terrible numbers. How do you think he'll do this year?
I think he'll do good. Like you were saying, from even doing my research, I think he's averaging like 23, 24 points at home, and he's averaging about 14 or 15 on the road. So I would definitely draft him as like a quarterback 2. I don't think I'd start with him. I would play him for matchups, only because of that split between home and away. I think that if you could have him as a quarterback too, and you're playing somebody like a Cleveland or somebody at home, by all means, I'd throw him in the starting lineup. But if you're playing, somebody tough, on the road, I don't know. I just don't think I wouldn't put him in as my starter. I'd have him as number 2. Plus, you have to look at he's always at some point in the year he's going to get hurt. That's what Ben does. I hate to say it. I hope he doesn't. I wish that he makes it through all 16 games, but he does have an injury concern, an injury history there. So I don't like that, knowing that I'm going to get a quarterback and at some point he's going to get hurt and I might have to search the waiver wire. Or I might have to make a trade or something like that if he's my number.
I agree. I think Ben is a perfect backup quarterback in fantasy football. Not your main guy, but just a guy in case your main guy doesn't, is on a bye or whatever. And if Ben isn't home, he's a good backup there. You mentioned Le'Veon Bell a little bit, but what do you see from him this year? To me, it seems it's almost the exact same situation as last year and missing training camp. How do you think he'll do?
I think he'll produce. I think he's going to start out the year exactly like he did last year. It's going to take him a couple games to get the wheels turning. He didn't start out of the gate very hot as far as starting the season, but I do think he's, like I said, he's number 3 or 4 running back on the list, depending on what you're reading or what you're using for your draft or what you think. But I think they're going to run him till the wheels fall off. If this is his last year in Pittsburgh, they're going to get as much out of him as they can, and possibly run his value a little down for a trade or for somebody to sign him if he gets out of Pittsburgh. I don't think they're not gonna get rid of him in his prime, so to speak. You know what I mean? They're gonna run the wheels off of him. They're gonna run him into the ground. He's gonna be the focal point of the offense along with AB. But I hope he does well, and if he is his last year in Pittsburgh, then I hope he goes out with a win. As a Steeler fan, I hope they go out with the Super Bowl. But I think he's definitely somebody you want to target, but I don't know if he's somebody that you want to have next year. I would wait and see. There might be injury concerns there, and I hate to keep talking about injuries because I don't want anybody to get injured, but you got to look at the fact that the guy runs 350, 400 times a year. It's a lot of carries, and there's not a lot of backs in the league that do that nowadays.
Yeah. Well, like you said earlier, volume equals production, and bad news for James Conner. Sorry if you think he's going to do well. Speaking of which, it's probably a good idea if you do draft Le'Veon Bell to draft James Conner in a later round because, like you said, in case Bell does get hurt, at least you have his handcuff right there.
Absolutely, yeah. I would think, and even if you're in a dynasty league or you're in a keeper league, for those guys, there's no doubt in my mind that if it is Le'Veon Bell's last year, James Conner will definitely be the number 1 back going into next season. So if you can get an early jump on him and as a keeper or a dynasty, then by all means, I would roll the dice this year and put him on, at least have him on your bench, like you said, in case of an injury or anything like that.
Yep. How about the receivers? Antonio Brown, probably. Number 1 wide receiver. I don't see that changing. But what about Juju or James Washington or Vance McDonald? What do you see coming out of them?
As far as Juju Smith, I see him doing better than he did last year. I think he had 900 yards last year, and he came on strong at the end of the year. I see that carrying over this year. He's obviously replacing Martavis Bryant from last year, who hit or miss. But I think Juju's done well so far in the preseason from what I have seen, the little bit that I have seen, unfortunately. I think he's going to do well. I would look for him to be a 1,000-yard receiver this year, and I think I could see him putting up 7-9 touchdowns. I think he's a good compliment to AB, and I'm interested to see what he can do. He's a young kid, and he's got a lot of game to him, so I think he's going to do well. As far as James Washington goes, I think that all depends on where they put him. I know when he was at Oklahoma State, he did a lot out of the slot, and I guess from what I've read, he had a good rapport with Mason Rudolph there in Oklahoma State. So I think if they put him in the slot, I think he's going to do well. I look for him to be a decent slot receiver. Kind of I don't know, I guess you could kind of say he's obviously number 3 in the pecking order or whatever as far as wide receivers go, but I don't know if a 1,000-yard receiver or whatever, but if you can get him as a late round flyer, I would roll the dice on him and take that chance all day.
Sounds good. All right. At Harlansburg33 on Twitter and on YouTube. Shaun Malone, thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, my next guests are hosts of the Just Win Ladies podcast, an all-women NFL podcast covering the Raiders and other things like zucchini. Angria Trask, Jenny Lynn, at Angria Trask on Twitter and at Jenny_Wildfan. Ladies, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am wonderful. Actually, I'm not. I got a bone to pick with both of you.
Uh-oh. What?
So I listened to your podcast, and you were talking about a zucchini. I'm not exactly sure why, but you're having a contest to name this zucchini.
Mm-hmm.
And I submitted.
Have you not looked at all of our pictures on our podcast page, though, Joey?
What? There's a podcast page. I listened to you guys. I didn't know there was. I didn't know there was pictures.
On our Twitter, we have pictures. Okay, so here's the story. I moved into a brand new house last year, and it has a big, huge backyard, and we have garden boxes and everything that were already set up. So I figured, what the heck, I'm going to try growing something. And I planted several things, and only a few of them decided they were going to grow, and zucchini happened to be one of them. And this zucchini plant has been out of control. So there was one that is now, well, officially last weekend, it was 13 inches long and 12 inches around. And so we're having a contest to name this zucchini because I'm going to enter it in the fair. And whoever wins is going to get a little piece of Just Win Ladies swag.
Okay. I submitted a name, and I don't understand why you didn't just stop the contest right there, because that's the clear. But Fred.
Wait, what was your name?
Fred Zucchiniakoff.
Oh.
I think that was one of the ones that we had in the running. So we've got what top 5 or something like that. I can't remember how many we picked that were just like off the charts. And we're gonna have to pick something.
Yeah,
soon.
I was gonna say there's so many good ones. We might have to post several and have the fans decide maybe.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we're gonna end up having to do.
There you go. Do a poll like I do. Top 4. Let the universe decide.
Exactly.
And hey, when you're voting, Fred Zucchiniakoff, that's my submission. Just not the sway to vote.
So you haven't actually seen a picture of the zucchini?
I've only heard about it on your podcast. It's
okay.
What, 13 inches now or something like that, or 13 feet or 13 miles long or something. I don't know.
I think
it's getting
pretty
close.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you
by Wednesday. What's that, Jenny?
I said I'm gonna send him a picture of this zucchini.
Yeah.
I gotta see this thing. Anyway, I guess we should talk football or something.
Zucchini's fun.
Yes.
How did the Raiders look in their last preseason game? I see it was a low-scoring game.
It was a low-scoring game, and that's a good thing.
Yes.
That means our defense came to play. Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
They played better this past one than the previous one, let's just say.
Yeah. Previous one was kind of a train wreck. This one we got to see a lot of show-offs, which is just fine. Our front seven was dominant. And we were both really, 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 really pleased with it.
Yes, we're happy about the defense.
That's good. Now, speaking of the defense, there's somebody missing.
Yeah.
Mr. Khalil Mack.
We don't want to talk about him. No.
We'll talk about him, Joey, but that's it.
Okay.
Nobody else.
The whole reason I've actually fooled you two. The whole reason that I have you on is because I want Khalil Mack on the Steelers.
Oh no!
Oh, that's not happening.
What can we do? What can I offer? Can I offer like a truckload of zucchini or something, or what is it going to take to get Khalil Mack on the Steelers?
It'll take Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Le'Veon Bell.
Let me. Okay, I'm writing this down. Okay.
And I would like a first
I'll
round.
talk to Mike Tomlin. We'll see.
Okay.
Seriously, what is? I mean, I keep hearing rumors that he actually is going to be traded. How on earth are you trading